Today I'm going to read one of my favorite parts from 266 by Roberto Bolaño for you. This is the Baroness in the Castle in part 5, and Hans Reiter and his comrade Vilka are on a little nighttime adventure in Dracula's castle. They're traveling through a series of peepholes in the wall. Finally, after passing other watch points plunged in darkness and sleep, they arrived at their true destination. The room of the Baroness von Zumpe, a room lit by 9 candles and presided over by the portrait of a soldier or warrior monk with the intent and tortured air of a hermit, in whose face, which hung 3 feet from the bed, one could observe all the bitterness of abstinence and penitence and self-abnegation. Beneath a naked man with an abundance of hair on his upper back and legs, they glimpsed the Baroness von Zumpe, her golden curls and part of her lily-white forehead occasionally emerging from behind the left shoulder of the person thrusting on top of her. The cries of the Baroness alarmed Reiter at first, who was slow to understand that they were cries of pleasure, not pain. When the coupling ended, General Antrescu got up from the bed, and they watched him walk to a table where a bottle of vodka stood. His penis, from which hung a not negligible quantity of seminal fluid, was still erect or half erect, and must have measured nearly a foot long, Vilka reflected afterward, his calculations on the mark. He looked more like a horse than a man, Vilka told his comrades, and he had the stamina of a horse too, because after swallowing some vodka, he returned to the bed, where the Baroness von Zumpe was drowsing, and after he had rearranged her, he began to fuck her again, at first scarcely moving, but then with such violence that the Baroness, on her belly, bit the palm of her hand until she drew blood so as not to scream. By now, Vilka had unbuttoned his fly and was masturbating, leaning against the wall. Reiter heard him moan beside him. First he thought it was a rat that just happened to be breathing its last somewhere nearby, a baby rat. But when he saw Vilka's penis and Vilka's hand moving back and forth, he was disgusted and elbowed him in the chest. Vilka ignored him and continued to masturbate. Reiter glanced at his face. Vilka's profile struck him as very odd. It looked like an engraving of a worker or artisan, an innocent passerby suddenly blinded by a ray of moonlight. He seemed to be dreaming, or, more accurately, momentarily breaking through the massive black walls that separate waking from sleep. So he left him alone, and after a while he began to touch himself too, at first discreetly through his trousers, and then openly, pulling out his penis and adjusting to the rhythm of General Antrescu and the Baroness von Zumpe, who wasn't biting her hand anymore. A bloodstain had spread on the sheet next to her sweaty cheeks, but crying and speaking words that neither the general nor the 2 soldiers understood. Words that went beyond Romania, beyond even Germany and Europe, beyond a country estate, beyond some hazy friendships, beyond what they, Vilka and Reiter, though perhaps not General Antrescu, understood by love, desire, sexuality. Then Vilka came on the wall and mumbled something too, a soldier's prayer, and soon afterward Reiter came on the wall and bit his lips without saying a word. And then Antrescu got up and they saw, or thought they saw, drops of blood on his penis, shiny with semen and vaginal fluid, and then Baroness von Zumpe asked for a glass of vodka. And then they watched as Antrescu and the Baroness stood entwined, each with a glass in hand and an air of distraction. And then Antrescu recited a poem in his tongue, which the Baroness didn't understand, but whose musicality she lauded. And then Antrescu closed his eyes and cocked his head as if to listen to something, the music of the spheres. And then he opened his eyes and sat at the table and set the Baroness on his cock, erect again, the famous foot-long cock, pride of the Romanian army. And the cries and moans and tears resumed, and as the Baroness sank down onto Antrescu's cock, or Antrescu's cock rose up into the Baroness von Zumpe, the Romanian general recited a new poem, a poem that he accompanied by waving both arms, the Baroness clinging to his neck, a poem that again neither of them understood except for the word Dracula, which was repeated every 4 lines, a poem that might have been martial or satirical or metaphysical or marmoreal or even anti-German, but whose rhythm seemed made to order for the occasion, a poem that the young Baroness, sitting astride Entrescu's thighs, celebrated by swaying back and forth like a little shepherdess gone wild in the vastness of Asia, digging her nails into her lover's neck, scrubbing the blood that still flowed from her right hand on her lover's face, smearing the corners of his lips with blood, while Entrescu, undeterred, continued to recite his poem in which the word Dracula sounded every 4 lines, a poem that was surely satirical, decided Ryder with infinite joy, as Vilke jerked off again.